When it comes to horror, what do you think of? You may think of horror as mostly mythical creepy creatures like zombies, vampires, ghosts, and etc., and dealing with jump scares. But the horror genre has many different types of subgenres within, and some can either be fictional or realistic to non-fictional. Like for example, serial killer slashers, which are 100% human, and we also got a subgenre within horror called the horrors of war. And today's video game story will be featuring the historical horrors of war and another horror genre known as psychological horror, which consists of focusing on someone's mental state in a messed up mind that can be quite disturbing, and the game we'll be talking about in featuring the horrors of war and psychological horror is What's up, YouTube Revolution? ZombfectedGaming 349 at your fingertips. So today we are gonna dive into the lore of Call of Duty Black Ops 1, a Call of Duty game that was a major departure of what came before, since it was extremely innovative in storytelling and marked the first Call of Duty to have a voiced protagonist in cutscenes and gameplay as well.
Your name is Alex Mason. You were born in Fairbanks, Alaska. In 1961, you served in a CIA assassination team known as Operation 40. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Enter Alex Mason, a CIA operative who gets captured by Fidel Castro in Cuba during the Bay of Pigs operation and gets offered as a gift to the Russian Soviets. Alex Mason was a gift to a Russian general named Nikita Dragovich, and Dragovich's plans were to brainwash Alex Mason by messing up his mind by turning Alex Mason into a sleeper agent to attack his own country, the United States of America, and kill President JFK. Stuff like this gets resisted by Alex Mason because during the progress of the brainwash of Alex Mason that Dragovich, Steiner, and Kravchenko were experimenting, Reznov sneaks on in to alter the brainwash on Mason and makes it that Reznov will do as Mason commands. Eventually, when Reznov plans the prison break of Russian Gulag for Kuda, and Mason makes it out, and Reznov doesn't make it out, and gets killed, and Mason eventually regroups with his original squad, Frank Woods and Joseph Bowman. We get to go see them fight in the Vietnam War, which was a very messed up war with a ton of war crimes, and all the guerrilla warfare tactics the Viet Cong did was pretty scary, and seeing what napalm could do, which was pretty much like gasoline on steroids, and the Agent Orange herbicide the Americans used, aka Operation Ranch Hand, was to destroy the jungle's vegetations to reveal the whereabouts of where Viet Cong were hiding, since they were all well dug in the spider holes. Agent Orange caused terrible illnesses in plenty of Vietnamese locals, making some of them deformed, and some of them have gotten cancer due to this chemical being used, and it frightens me since I'm quarter Vietnamese myself, since my dad was born there, and luckily my dad wasn't a victim of Agent Orange. Black Ops 1 demonstrates the Vietnam War mission sections very well with how brutal they can be while fighting the NVA and the Viet Cong. And like I said, these are examples of depicting the subgenre, the horrors of war. And I count war as horror because I don't think there's anything else scarier than in life than going to war and fighting terror, in my opinion. Like I said, it's why horrors of war is a subgenre in the overall horror genre, in my opinion. The previous Treyarch Call of Duty game before Black Ops 1 called Call of Duty World at War demonstrates this subgenre very well, with the grittiness and the horrors of World War II very realistically. But back to Mason and his brainwashing. Eventually he runs into Reznov in Vietnam, but Reznov is only there in Vietnam in Mason's imagination, and what makes it creepy is no one else in Mason's surrounding is acknowledging Reznov's existence, except for Mason himself.
Mason, you get what you came for?
Are these your men?
Woods, Bowman.
I am Reznov. Victor.
What took you so long, Mason? That intel better be worth it.
So much for a tense ceasefire. The enemy's courage could be the result of their newfound ally.
22, 21, 40, 14.
They will call out to Mason asking what the hell, Mason, and what makes it so creepy is Mason doesn't ask his squad mates if they see Reznov. Mason will just focus on the mission in his head, and if I was any of the other squad mates witnessing Mason all like this, it would definitely creep me out and definitely feel really off in the middle of battle, such as the Vietnam War. Also, when Reznov is nearby Mason, the creepy brainwashing sounds and number sequences start playing into Mason's mind, which adds to the psychological horror. The moment where Mason sees Reznov in the rat tunnels in Vietnam as he is following Swift, and with Swift being all creeped out and distracted at Mason talking to Reznov in his head, unfortunately gets Swift jumped and killed by a Viet Cong. Moments like this is also what makes Black Ops 1 a horror game. Later on in the story, during the glorified cutscene mission called Revelations, Hudson breaks the brainwash for Mason and gets him to snap out of it and lays out everything for Mason on what exactly happened in reality. This revealed to Mason that the presence of Reznov not being there actually made it feel as if Reznov was a ghost haunting and possessing Mason's mind, and being obsessed with the revenge against Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Steiner. This brings me back and kind of reminds me and mirrors of what Vladimir Makarov said in the original Modern Warfare 2 trailer of when he says, "Revenge is like a ghost. It takes over every man it touches."
Revenge is like a ghost. It takes over every man it touches. Its thirst cannot be quenched until the last man standing has fallen.
But even though Black Ops doesn't have anything paranormal at all, it's all purely psychologically all in Mason's brainwashed mind, which makes it seem so much like he is being possessed by paranormal forces, but it's actually the experimental MK Ultra-like drug that the Soviets put on Mason in Vorkuta that also was possessing Mason's mind to carry out a potential kill order on President John F. Kennedy. We all know that it was Lee Harvey Oswald who assassinated JFK, and one of the creepy parts was, during Revelations, was hearing in Mason's mind during a flashback, he said proceed to target, but it was all distorted the way he said it, and saying Oswald compromised, which meant that Oswald was caught. With Mason saying proceed to target, it might have implied that Mason was telling Oswald to proceed to the target, which was JFK. Look at this cutscene of how creepy and eerie this is when it zooms up on Mason like he is a bad guy, and feeling like we are kinda responsible for JFK's assassination. When we play Call of Duty games, we are always meant to feel like a hero and always be a good guy. But in Black Ops 1, we don't just feel like a hero. We are a rogue Black Ops operative doing some illegal stuff and not by the book, and some potential war crimes that can probably put us in a federal penitentiary or the death penalty with the electric chair. When you think about these war crimes Mason has committed, it makes it feel horrifying, and it makes us feel like we question our morality. Are we meant to be heroes in these war games? One of the parts to where Mason does a messed up war crime is where Steiner was gonna betray Dragovich and inform the CIA more about the numbers broadcast, and Reznov's revenge that took over Mason's mind made Mason kill Steiner out of revenge, but Mason claimed it was Reznov killing Steiner in front of him. That moment goes back to the feeling like it's the horror of being possessed and doing something very wrong. But let's now talk about why Reznov wanted revenge, and that'll take us into the horrors of the topic of chemical warfare. Back during the end of World War II, Reznov and the rest of the Soviet squad led by Dragovich went in to team up with Steiner and steal the Nova 6 biochemical weapon from the Nazis, and Dragovich took control of this weapon for the Soviets and betrayed Reznov and Petrenko, which is the guy you played as during the Soviet campaign in Call of Duty World at War. Dragovich demonstrated and tested Nova 6's capabilities on some of the other Soviet soldiers and Petrenko was devoured by the chemical weapon right in front of Reznov.
The reaction of Petrenko was a hero. He deserved the hero's death. Instead of giving his life for the glory of the motherland, he died for nothing, like an animal. He shot up died in Berlin. As I watched my closest friend die, it became clear we were not the only ones seeking the German weapons.
We also get to see some US Marines working alongside Hudson during the Rebirth Island mission 15 minutes earlier before Mason kills Steiner, and it shows some more of the horrors of what the Nova 6 can do to the human body.
Nova 6! Hazmat suits now!
Alpha Squad, we're moving forward. Protect your hazmat suits. You rupture your suit, you'll be dead in a minute.
Dragovich wanted to use this chemical weapon on the United States of America, and the numbers broadcast was gonna inform some of the sleeper agents to unleash the Nova 6 across a bunch of the US states, and just think about the chaos. Witnessing the victims of Nova 6 we saw was already a horror story, and just imagine if the free world of the US was getting poisoned by Nova 6 on a massive scale. All the innocent lives getting taken by Nova 6 would be all-out hell, and I think an attack like this on America would be probably even worse than what Raul Menendez did in Black Ops 2 with the drone attacks he did when he hacked the US Army's and Navy's drone fleets. The Nova 6 gases would have been apocalyptic for America. It's a good thing Nova 6 didn't return in Black Ops 2, because imagine if those drones spread Nova 6, but it seems like Nova 6 was discontinued as a chemical weapon because of how inhumane it was. But in Black Ops 3, Nova 6 returns in one scene.
Ever heard of Nova 6? It's a chemical agent that came dangerously close to being used in World War II and the Cold War. Even trace amounts were enough to cause the deaths of over 300,000 people in Singapore. Okay. Interface with the terminal. We need to find out how bad this is.
Multiple breaches and containment failures. The facility's going critical. Just like
We can reset the containment controls. Purge the gas from the area. That console behind you should be the manual override. Unfortunately, a reset can only be done from this side. Hey, wait! There's some things you can endure. Some things you can survive.
A brief moment of agony.
This isn't one of them.
Darkness.
Warnings posted in error. All systems nominal. Purge sequence initiated. It lied to us. It can make you believe things that aren't even real.
Kane, please.
Whatever this thing says, no matter what it does, you cannot trust it! Rachel!
I'm sorry, Rachel.
And this pretty much defines the horrors of chemical warfare. But anyways everyone, what did we learn so far? Is Black Ops 1 a horror game? Yes it is. First of all, we got the horrors of war carried on over from the elements of what Call of Duty World at War had introduced, but this time in the Vietnam War, and we learned the psychological horror of Mason's brainwashing and manipulations and possessions of mostly Reznov and partially Dragovich. And we learned about how chemical warfare like Nova 6 could have caused an apocalyptic bioterrorism event in America, probably turning it into America's potential darkest terrorist event ever recorded in history. But I hope you all enjoyed this Black Ops 1 lore video on why I say it's a horror game, and I wanted to make this video because the new upcoming Black Ops 6 campaign seems like it may pique my interest, since recent Call of Duty campaigns haven't really interested me since Black Ops Cold War, and this Black Ops 6 might be the one that I might potentially enjoy. But consider dropping a like on the video, and consider subscribing to the channel, and ding that bell icon really hard so I can always stay within fast reach of your fingertips when new uploads arrive. ZombfectedGaming 349 over and out.